Good afternoon, everyone. It's March 29th, 2022. You're listening to The 33rd Degree by Lucifer Tim. Text message notifications will resume on the 1st. We used up all of our units for the month, which is not a bad thing. We're running out sooner because more people have signed up. We're joined here by Sister D, John Cordone, and we will be live this evening for open phones. There's so much to talk about, but I can't put off anymore the things that happened this weekend. We have just too many clues, too many puzzle pieces. I just want to get these out there. So, during Will Smith's acceptance speech, Venus Williams had a wardrobe malfunction. A Janet Jackson-esque kind of wardrobe malfunction. Bearing her left breast. And I don't think this is a malfunction. I think this is an intentional symbolic act. She forms a triangle with her arms and exposes her breast. Now, the significance of Venus Williams in the Illuminati slap ritual, what are we going to call this thing? The Illuminati Venus-Lucifer slap ritual. Now, let me go ahead and just explain briefly my first take on this. One, we're all talking about the slap heard around the world, the fake slap, the stage slap, real or not. Real or not. It looked to me like Chris Rock was holding his hands behind his back like he knew it was coming and he didn't want to flinch. But we've been trying to figure out, what is the purpose to this and is there a deeper meaning? Well, right after I watched that movie, King Richard, because after the slap during his apology/acceptance speech, Will Smith referenced that movie and said, I was behaving like the crazy dad, King Richard. So like I said, I watched the movie King Richard, and here's what I found. What I found is pretty much evidence that this entire thing was scripted. Because what you saw on the stage was a reflection of what happened in the movie. And there are deeper connections symbolically. So first of all, we have King Richard. Richard is the father of the tennis players, Serena and Venus Williams. And he's extremely defensive. He protects them from basically the racist world, not to mention any physical harm, but he's like this overly protective, overbearing father. That's his role. Hyper defensive. And you have a entire movie about this, and he plays this character. So now he gets an Oscar for the role. And you have Chris Rock disses his wife. What does he do? He gets up on stage and he defends her, as the character would have, and he makes that remark, and he even says, art imitates life. But it gets more interesting because he's defending a character named Venus. Okay, so Venus is very significant in the pantheon. Venus is one of the primary goddesses in this pantheon, associated with Friday, and every one of these planetary deities has an associated color, an associated metal. Venus is associated with copper, green, whereas Mars, iron, red, Saturn, black, lead. So you can kind of go through the list and see. My point being, he's defending Jade, or Jada, Jade, green, who's wearing this enormous emerald dress. So you have more green, Jade, green, Jada, defending someone dressed like the goddess Venus. So it's a parallel story, and then it goes further, as we will see here. But there is nothing here would indicate that this thing was anything other than scripted. Everything kind of contradicts that. So that's what I wanted to start with. We have other areas to look at as well, regarding the movie and how it ties in to current events. So, for example, you have the Supreme Court nominee. This is the Judge Jackson. And I saw this article yesterday that said that what we're seeing is very much a repeat of 1967 with another Supreme Court nominee. So race-based questioning of Jackson mirrors experience of Thurgood Marshall. So America's first black justice was confirmed in 67. And they're comparing that to right now with this new nominee. And they're saying this is a mirror from 1967. Now, here's where it gets interesting because I see a parallel here. We have Will Smith defending Jada, Will Smith as King Richard defending Venus. Venus needed defense and protection on the green tennis court. And then Jackson, this new Supreme Court nominee, is under a lot of scrutiny, was, as you would expect, but it's being framed as though it's coming from a place of hate and racism. That's why they're referencing 1967. So it's kind of interesting here that you have a parallel with the first black woman Supreme Court justice to be, and it parallels with Venus going into the tennis court and becoming the first in that arena. So it looks to me like maybe there, in a way, there's a parallel story here, and it has to do with a certain form of, I would say, I guess they're raising issues of identity politics and acceptable discourse. So is it acceptable to slap somebody in the face if they comment about this particular demographic? Is there a point where comedy is actually hate speech? A few other things about it too that stood out to me was the quote from Denzel Washington that Smith gave during his acceptance speech. He quoted Denzel Washington about, when you reach your highest point, the devil will come for you. Well, that's kind of an interesting statement, considering that he gets his Oscar and then this happens. Again, a suggestion of foreknowledge. And immediately after this incident, you can find a photo of Will Smith and Denzel Washington laughing up to the side. Here they are laughing and joking, and this is after the slap. So, what are we looking at here? I think we're looking at a joke. Now, Denzel recently played Macbeth, and this came up today because I saw this thing about how supposedly it's bad luck to say Macbeth in a theater. This was something that was in the news today. I never heard about that. Did Chris Rock hex himself by evoking the Macbeth curse? So I've never heard of the Macbeth curse until this morning, but I'm like, well, Macbeth was in the room hanging out with Will Smith, warned him about the devil coming for him. So Chris Rock gave a shout out to Denzel Washington, who appeared in last year's film. Macbeth loved it, he said. Then he cracked a few jokes before digging at Jada's hair loss. So they're suggesting here that you don't say Macbeth in a theater. So here are some tweets on this. To be fair, Chris Rock put a hex on himself by saying Macbeth in a theater. David Gordon. Saying Macbeth on a stage, bad luck. I can't stop thinking about how Chris Rock said Macbeth seconds before he got slapped. You know you're not supposed to say Macbeth in a theater. Call it the Scottish play. Denzel, Macbeth, loved it. So there's a interesting connection here. What are the odds? Let me go through some comments here. Make sure I haven't missed anything. A Portal Complex says Janet Jackson 2.0. Yeah, this is another thing we're going to try to figure out, but what does this mean? During the non-apology, where he mentions that life imitates art, duper's delight, the fake tears, during his crisis actor performance where he actually earned the Oscar, I think it's funny that people are incredulous. Oh, there's no way it's fake. There's no way that the world's greatest actors could fool us all in plain sight, convincingly on a screen, on TV. Come on. What are we looking at here? It's all theater. But during the acceptance speech, Venus Williams had this unfortunate nipple slip. That's one of their headlines from Total Pro Sports. Again, I don't think it's unintentional. And the name Venus is extremely significant. I watched the movie, and the first thing I saw after the movie called King Richard, one of the first things I noted here is that this character, King Richard, was brought to life in that moment. At least that was the attempt. So we're supposed to think he got so deep into character that he couldn't help acting like that character is just method acting. You can make excuses for it. Maybe it was a selling point. So then I clicked on HBO's website right after my live stream when we talked about this the other night, and the first thing that happened was that movie popped up. So I watched it. I also saw in the movie, and I wasn't surprised by any of this. I saw the subtext here about really explaining or even justifying Will Smith's actions. The justification being this society has too long tolerated disparaging remarks about minorities and have laughed at it. So, in other words, this is sort of like one of these contrived, teachable moments to blame America and systemic racism, systemic attitudes that are just kind of part of that are just not even open, and they have to be pointed out by incidents like this. And it's probably not a coincidence that the new Supreme Court justice is big on CRT, which is just making the case, of course, that America is founded on racism. So there's that subtext. And again, I think there's a connection between nominee Jackson going to the Supreme Court and Venus going to the top of the tennis courts. And if you watch the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a parallel here. And then what's more, you have his name is King Richard in the film. Well, the film's called King Richard, Richard Williams. So you have King Richard hanging out with Macbeth, joking after the event. These things are not accidental. All right, I have a few more things about this thing. Someone sent this to me. This is kind of a side note. The Oscar is Enki or Ptah. This is one of the creator gods of Egypt, one of the primary gods. Maybe it's sort of like Osiris. It looks like Osiris. The Oscar is just an old idol. We've been talking about it. Who is it? It says here, it looks like it could be any one of these. But anyway, idol worship is my main take on it. We're looking at clear idol worship, and the celebrities are actually living idols. So they're actually being worshipped. Now, if you look at pictures of Will and Chris, it's doubtful that these two guys would be so angry at one another that they would be zero to slap in the face in front of everybody escalations. You think they would talk about it after? So if you look at them, they have a long history, they go back. All of this suggests that you wouldn't have that kind of loss of control. And again, I think Chris Rock, his hands behind his back, grasping at his own wrist, probably was there to stop any kind of flinching. Again, my question, how did Denzel Washington know that the devil would come for Smith? There was a pad on his cheek, somebody said. Yes, the pad on his cheek. Was that a pad? I don't know. Was it the lighting? I'm not sure, but it looked like he had something on his cheek. I wouldn't be surprised if the slap wasn't just a real slap. But now there's a few other points that come out of this too. Listen to what Jim Carrey said. Well, first of all, Chris Rock didn't file a police report. He did not file a police report. Wonder why. So Jim Carrey is criticizing Hollywood for giving Will Smith a standing ovation. And I kind of agree with this point here. I had said his enablers are cheering him on. They all enabled this thing. I didn't hear any booing. But anyway, Jim Carrey said he was sickened. He said, "I was sickened by the standing ovation. Hollywood is just spineless en masse." And it really felt like this is a clear indication that we aren't the cool club anymore. Carrey said Smith should have been escorted out. Now again, this is all coming from the world stage perspective that it's real. And they're not able to espouse any opinions from that perspective. The Jim Carreys, all these other actors, they're all in on it, even if they're just crisis acting. Just by pretending it's real, they're essentially making it real. Okay, let's see. I have someone here says, my theory is that they're priming for violence against one another, making violence acceptable. Well, I think, in a way, I think this is about, yeah, kind of that. I think there are some points where comedy's not comedy, where free speech isn't free speech, where free speech is justifiably silenced with violence, which I would never agree to. And that's the premise they're getting us to accept. Frog King says, Tim, it looked to me like Smith was standing on a five-star pentagram circle, obvious pyramids when looking. Well, I saw motion lines. So if you look at the slap and the angle of it that they captured it from, it's so perfect. But one of the things that stands out to me is that right behind them you have lines on the floor. And in some of the pictures it's very pronounced where it looks like motion lines, like a comic book. You know, like the comic, like the meme where Batman slaps Robin. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to replace that meme. So when Batman slaps Robin, you see that line where the fist flies across the the frame. It's the motion line. So I'm looking at the Will Smith Chris Rock slap, and it 100% has motion lines on the floor. I mean, look at that. I haven't seen many people point this out. Maybe just because it's just a coincidence, but I don't think so. Because I'm thinking it looks like Will Smith's arm perfectly created that motion line, like they were choreographed. Probably standing, like that person said here, probably in a pentagram. They probably sacrificed a baby there the night before. Just kidding. Okay, Sister D says Venus, Ishtar, Inanna. Yeah, all these goddess names. And again, in this, whatever this is, this archaic paradigm where they see these planets as deities, every one of these planets is associated with the day of the week, with a metal and a color. And Venus being associated with green is very significant for Will Smith's wife to be wearing a big green dress. Jada, very Venus-like name. And even before, he and Jada were standing in front of a green screen. And they said that they were ready for, I believe they said chaos. Yes, they said they choose chaos. Let me bring this clip up. So again, he's defending a Venus archetype here. His wife dressed in jade, in green. And look here, this is very much emphasizing the green. So this is before. Will and Jada choose chaos ahead of the Oscars. What does this mean, they choose chaos? Again, order out of chaos. They create the chaos in order to bring about some order. So you talk about the Hegelian dialectic. So the problem, reaction, solution. He said tonight, we're going to create the problem. We're going to create the chaos. And then, of course, the rest of us, this event will trigger some response and we will have the order, the solution to the problem. Let me play this clip. Will Smith and Jada choose chaos. Who says we're going to choose chaos before a night where they sit in front for what was probably what would have to have been an unscripted joke? Does anyone here think that Chris Rock doesn't do his homework? That he shows up without jokes already pre-planned? And this joke would not have worked if they had been back 5 or 6 rows. If he didn't know that Jada would have been front row, it wouldn't have made any sense.
Get away with a great deal at the
And to me, that's one of the big giveaways here. Then Denzel Washington, his own reference, Smith's own reference to the character that he was acting like, and then finally saying art imitates life. Okay, here you see Will Smith and Jada with the green screen. She's dressed in emerald, saying, quote, "We choose chaos." She doesn't look like someone who's about to be offended by a lame joke. I'm looking for the Illuminati hand signs. Yep, think I see some in there. Anyway, there you have it. So he defends Venus for hours during this movie, and then he defends Venus on the stage when he gets an award for that movie. Commenter named Venus says, I said the same thing you did. The slap was for a corny joke. Yeah, that was a substandard joke. It really was. Linda Curtis says the fake stars are falling from heaven. See, I'm glad you brought that up, because what I had seen here is, I think it was on The Drudge, where they said, there's a headline about, is it the end of the age of movie stars? I'll see if I can find that exact headline. And then I see Jim Carrey saying, we're not the cool club anymore. So it does seem like the stars are falling. And this would be a an intentional thing too. They're bringing them down. And this is all, again, I think, the decentralization of media. People aren't piling into the theaters anymore. They're not all being programmed at once. I don't see this as progress. I think this is a controlled demolition. Again, Venus Williams had an unfortunate nipple slip during the acceptance speech. What could that mean? Well, the Janet Jackson one was pretty clear. You had Candlemas, Pagan Holiday, Greenfield. The whole ceremony of that day is based on the sun god being weaned. He's born on Christmas, but by the time you get around to Super Bowl Sunday, he's been weaned, and that's when the sun is reaching the altar. So the goddess Bridget or Venus, however you want to, this goddess figure is paraded around to show this progress in the year that we made this much progress. The sun is weaned, and the bared breast represents this. So Venus Williams exposing her chest could be something similar. Not quite sure. We're looking into it. Cubstar says falling stars like meteorites. We also have falling CubeSats. 40 CubeSats fell. Simon says the Oscar could be Telos. In Greek mythology, Telos was a great giant automaton made of bronze to protect Europa in Crete from pirates and invaders. He circled the island's shores 3 times daily. Salty says Chris Rock, aka Asteroid. Fascinating. Yeah, I refuse to see these two as enemies. I don't think there's any real animosity here. They're all part of the clown show. I'm surprised people actually fall for this stuff. Like, since when do we give them the benefit of the doubt? Again, another element to it. Did Chris Rock hex himself with the Macbeth curse? I watched Macbeth as well, and that movie has a great deal of significance to the present times. I don't even think it's the best movie that I've seen based on Shakespeare. It doesn't hold a candle to Titus, but the fact that it was shot in black and white is very significant. The fact that it's Denzel Washington who played Malcolm X is also very significant, and it ties in to the political climate of the day, as this event will as well. Like, I do think this event, even though it's Will Smith mirroring King Richard defending Venus Williams, and he's defending his wife wearing the Venus dress, even though it mirrors that, I think this also does relate to the Supreme Court. There's a tennis court / Supreme Court first that we're seeing here. First black female, first black female. What is the parallel here? The court. This is some kind of ritualistic event that I think it might have to do, I think, with making it acceptable to be extremely defensive regarding any criticism pointed at her. That would be one of the utilities of this particular psyop. All right, and I have some other things as well about where some planetary conjunctions we could probably look at as well. Let me go through some other headlines of the day. So again, listen to this headline here. This is about 1967. Race-based questioning of Ketanji Brown Jackson mirrors experience of Thurgood Marshall. The aggressive race-based questioning of Supreme Court nominee Jackson mirrored the treatment doled out to Justice Marshall 50 years ago. So they're comparing these two, and this is interesting to me because ever since 2020, the late 60s have been grafted onto our present news cycle. 68 was a template for 2020. This was reinforced by many of the movies, by the propaganda, specifically by the work of Spike Lee, The Five Bloods. Chadwick Boseman starred in that, and Black Panther, which figured prominently in the 2020 news cycle, and how it correlated with what was going on the world stage in the world of politics. 2021 mirrored 69, following 68. 2021 space race, Manson killing, Manson commensurate level killing. You had the QAnon cult, right-wing violent hippies. It was 1969 all over again. ARPANET from 69 became Internet of People, Internet of Things. It's also I would even say that the emergence of Gaia, the global AI initiative, is also kind of repeating or building off of 69. So anyway, to see this repeating, and this, I'm pointing this out to you because they're telling you, This is just like 1967. And they're using the word mirrors, which is how I've been describing it. And I'm suggesting that this mirroring of the way that they frame these events is intentional. It's not history repeating, it's not history rhyming, it's strategy. It's storytelling. And that's what they do. Storytelling. And here's these, look at these two individuals laughing. Does this look like someone who just committed career suicide and slapped his best friend and embarrassed himself? Here he is hanging out with who? Macbeth. The Macbeth curse has been pronounced by Chris Rock, and then Macbeth comes out. But before the slap, Macbeth told him, the devil's going to come for you at your highest point. Yep. The Will Smith Chris Rock slapgate has been ruled by majority to be a case of assault. But the unlikely reason for the outburst has been the Macbeth curse. You know, there's another curse that I've been following. This one's kind of interesting. It's called the Madden curse. So the Madden curse has to do with the football game, the NFL game for with Madden's face on it. So listen to this. More than 20 years into the iconic franchise's history, there's no escaping the Madden curse. So the Madden NFL game, of the 22 players that have been selected to cover the Madden games, 16 have had troubling or shortened seasons following their cover debut. So basically, if you get on the cover of this Madden NFL game, it's pretty much going to be over for you. It's a curse, as they've described it. Now, interestingly enough, the last face to be put on this is Colin Kaepernick. So I'm like, that's kind of interesting, because he hadn't played for years, and he was put on on this game, and people asked about it. Yep, Madden 22, and that number 22 has a lot of interesting connections to Kaepernick and the whole last year, actually, which we could get into if you want to look at these patterns in the news that connect all these various stories and tell a cohesive story. Colin Kaepernick has a higher rating in this year's version of the sports franchise game, so they kind of artificially raised his status. EA Sports and Madden NFL 22 insulted both Colin and football fans. A lot of people weren't happy about it. But anyway, I'm bringing this up because I believe that he has been in talks with Seattle and a few others. He's trying to get work. A Seattle coach provides Colin Kaepernick update. So they are in talks. Will he get in? If he does, it will be the first person to break the curse, I think. The Seahawks find themselves in a situation where they could really use a veteran quarterback. Kaepernick has been promoting his ability to play at a high level, and he's worked out with several Seahawk players in recent days. He threw passes for 90 days at Dempsey Indoor with Aaron Fuller and a few others. So this is fascinating. Just bringing this up because this Madden curse has been attached to him. Now the Macbeth curse. Let's see what else we have. The HBIC says Pfizer sponsored the Oscars and have a new alopecia drug coming out. Yep, there's got to be something in here. There's got to be a reason, and maybe it's selling some kind of treatment. It's certainly not a good commercial for Scientology. I would have thought that out of all of the courses that you would take, there'd be some anger management in there somewhere. Is this what's at the end of that road? Total loss of control, infantile emotions over a terrible joke. I mean, that joke was a slap to Chris Rock's own face. He slapped himself in his own face with that joke. Commenter says, "Hey Tim, I'm in Europe, caught you live. Yeah, you want to call in through Skype? I can definitely make that happen. I haven't set it up on this computer yet, but I will. And as soon as I can, I'm trying to get to the point where I can be on live in the mornings and evenings. So basically, in the mornings, I'll be on your time schedule. It's meant to be twice daily, but I'm still doing other side jobs. In fact, if you haven't seen it yet, timosmond.win is where I sell my art, NFTs, and ebooks. And this is how we basically finance this channel. So if you want to see morning live streams as well, keep supporting the channel. Eventually it will be twice per day, 5 days a week. Open phones in the evening. Usually just data dump in the mornings, going over whatever happened the previous night. And yeah, here's an example of the kind of NFTs I've been creating lately. These are all one of one, unique. Here are the penguins eating the red pill popcorn. And if you've never purchased an NFT, this is a way in, because it's a one-click claim link. So you buy it with whatever payment method, you click the link and it opens up a wallet. You create one of your choice, super easy, a couple clicks, and then you then have a digital asset portfolio. All right, so I will be live this evening to take calls. I just wanted to put some information out there, some of the things we had come across indicating that this entire thing is a big hoax. It ties into the movie. You've got the Macbeth curse. We got the Venus symbolism. Quite a lot going on. We have other things as well to talk about this evening. There's been a lot of interesting development in the area of QAnon, which does tie into this. We have this new Supreme Court nominee who's being harangued by what appears to be racially motivated. This is how the media is framing it. Meanwhile, on the other side, Justin Clarence Thomas's wife has been caught up in a scandal where she's a major QAnoner and was actually trying to encourage her husband to flip the election. So there's quite a lot going on with that. Dan Scavino held in contempt. This was someone who directed Trump's media, his social media operations. And this is fascinating to me because Dan Scavino is the guy whose tweets were followed religiously by QAnoners. And they would say, Dan tweeted at 9/11 today. Therefore, it connects to this particular Q drop. And they would literally go through all these different Q drops and connect it to Dan Scavino's tweets. And it was determined by many, including myself, that, he's sending out dog whistles. He's pandering. He's dropping hints. So listen to this. This is from Vice. The January 6th committee wants to speak to Trump's social media guy about QAnon. So here's Dan Scavino. Now, of course, this is Vice, left-leaning. So they're going to pick the worst picture of him. He looks like a zombie here. But this is the thing. These dog whistles, these tie-ins from his tweets to Q drops are undeniable. So the QAnoners weren't wrong. They did have an insider at Trump's side connecting them to the story that they were going to somehow defeat this, quote, deep state, whatever the hell that is. So it's interesting to see that this is finally coming out. Listen to this. This is Liz Cheney.
The committee has many questions for Mr. Scavino about his political social media work for President Trump, including his interactions with an online forum called The Donald and with QAnon, a bizarre and dangerous cult. President Trump, working with Mr. Scavino, successfully spread distrust for our courts, which had repeatedly found no basis to overturn the election. And Trump's stolen election campaign succeeded in provoking the violence on January 6th and widely...
Okay, so this is suggesting that his tweets connected with the QAnon drops did in fact serve to motivate a lot of them to think that they were part of something. And I agree. I've been saying this for some time because it's true. And they're getting very, very close to the actual QAnon. So here's an example. This is Dan Scavino, White House social media director, posted on his social media an image that has a Q on it. He took it from a QAnon supporter who posted it in response to his Facebook posts. So you kind of had a back and forth kind of winking, not, nudge, nudge, wink, no direct, overt communication, but you had some showing that Scavino was in their Facebook groups, that they are actually in communication. Again, this is something that went all the way through the 1/6 insurrection, which was totally fake and staged. That's not really my point. My point being is that this is all unraveling, and I think it's all by design. And my take on it is that Trump is going to take a Nixon-like fall, Watergate level stuff. That's what we're looking at here. This is Watergate level stuff. So listen to this. There's an attorney, Ron Filipkowski, a prosecutor, criminal defense attorney in Florida, who's been monitoring Scavino's tweets and this Q thing. And he said, quote, I met with the J6 committee and I told them about the QAnon connected activity that I'd seen for months from Trump's social media director, Dan Scavino, and I gave them specific examples. It's interesting to see here that Liz Cheney has concluded that this is all true. So I contacted this criminal defense attorney out in Florida. I emailed him and I called him today and I texted him to let him know what I know. Because once the name George News makes it to Vice, once they start looking underneath that, then things are going to get really fun for this channel because, of course, one of the top individuals in this collection known as Q has been a longtime enemy of this channel and is embroiled in a lawsuit with me. We're just waiting to serve him. And so it should get very interesting very fast. I sent this guy all the evidence that I have. And if any of you are interested in looking at that, go to marcusgoldfinch.icu, where I even have evidence that this Goldfinch character, who's George News, who is Q, is in direct communication with Ivanka Trump, Don Trump Jr., and actually is a White House credentialed media personality out there. Kind of stays off the radar, but not for long. So that's going to get interesting. Again, get on the newsletter. I'll be sending out live stream notifications again starting in a couple of days. Just catching up on things. I just didn't want to let us get too far behind. We're covering so many different things right now. The PR stunt of the slap in the face was simply that, a PR stunt. So we're just trying to analyze what does this lead to? What is the purpose of this PR stunt? Every PSYOP has some agenda behind it. And in my view, the agenda behind this PSYOP is going to have to do with some free speech tie-in. And I think there's some occult significance here to Venus and Jade being connected to Venus symbolically. And all of this definitely connects the tennis court and the Supreme Court and the first black female in each of these domains. And I think this might even be saying if you question her or you challenge this, you deserve this slap in the face. I think there's a not so subtle subtext here. Again, Will Smith wins Best Actor and Oscar for King Richard. And I watched the movie, and one of the things in the movie that it showed is the Rodney King beating, like halfway through the movie. So just to give you an idea of the tone of the movie, it reminded me in many ways of Colin in Black and White, which Colin in Black and White is about the same kind of attitudes that he faced, and they're comparing it to what King Richard faced. Anyway, I think this is political agitprop more than entertainment. That's why it's coming out of HBO and Netflix. Let me see. Salty says, the truth is flooding right now. This is a revelation. A lot of people who never question the news are seeing this stuff, and they're going to probably just still go along with the official story. Like Jim Carrey. Oh, he needs to pay for this. Then you have Whoopi Goldberg. There's going to be some consequences. So they're not going to go down this route that we are on. They're not going to acknowledge that this thing is a hoax. Like we're ahead of them because they have to act as though everything's real and respond as such. We're not really kind of bound by that. It's fake until proven real, and I haven't seen anything here to suggest that it is real. Anyway, go to timosmond.win. You'll see a lot of the new animated NFTs that I'm working on. Get up on the newsletter. We'll be live, open phones tonight, and very soon we'll be twice daily, and I'll try to, I want to reach more East Coasters and people on other sides of the plane or ball or whatever you think we're on. Anyway, this is Solemite Fly Auto Hoax. Have a great afternoon. See you this evening.
CIA be lurking, I be in the turban. Little ones stay cursing, older ones out twerking. Talking about lack of education, streets are always dangerous. Bluetooth speakers playing, do you really hear what they saying? Do you know what that mean? Are you down for the team? They speak through signs and symbols, you can learn about these things. Live by 9/11, Club of 27. Once you think that they in heaven, nah bruh, it's a legend. It's all according to the code. Them Illuminati with my mind, body, and my soul. That's why they snatching bodies, everybody in a Holly Grove. Deception is a hobby, switching roles with the auto clone. We call that an auto hoax.
Man, what you trying to prove? Don't you know we've been around the globe and been to the moon?
Get it, that's an auto hoax.
You tripping, times two. What about the shootings that they always cover on the news?
That's an auto hoax.
They don't move, we will make the way. Let it spray, right reality like an AKA. Let them know we don't play. They live like life's a party, but it's really like a breakaway. Meditate, focus your attention on your better days. You know what I'm talking about. Don't let these slimy narcissists, the antichrist out there turn your eye. Freedom of speech is actuality. That's why the truth must spread by word of mouth, word of mouth. It's all according to the code. Damn Illuminati with my mind, body, and my soul. That's why they snatching bodies, everybody in a Holly Grove. Deception is a hobby, switching roles with the auto clone. Let me turn on my auto hoax. Not even a proven fact. The floor curves into a spinning ball, and you can test for that.
Globe is an auto hoax.
Man, you must be trolling me. Scientific theories aren't what they are shown to be.
Yup, that's an auto hoax.
So what you're saying is you don't accept the claim that's missing proof, then you label it.
Exactly, it's an auto hoax.
Wow, sports is scripted by the number code. What do I really know? Let me turn on my